Spring means garden prep, and I have a lot of things I want to grow this year and hopefully can. One goal that I have this year is also restocking my can house. And I was feeling super inspired by all of the veggies and things that I want to grow this year. Let's get started with these farm fresh DIYs. They had the cutest carrot burlap treat bags at Dollar Tree this year, and I picked up several of these. I wanted them for a DIY, and I also grabbed several of them to pack actual Easter treat bags for my kids in my Sunday school class this year. I think they will love these, and I'm going to personalize those with some other things that I found at Dollar Tree too. But for my DIY, I just started by cutting off that top section of each of those pouches. You can, of course, set that aside if you want to and save it for another project. And I did cut the tags out of these. It didn't really make a difference in the end, so you can skip that step if you want to. And I decided to cut each of these bags down into two separate pieces. So I just cut around that seam on the front and the back of these, so I would have two pieces to work with. I'm going to be making carrots with these, and I wanted to cut these down to a smaller size. If you left them that size that they came in, it would just be a really fat carrot, and I wanted these to look a little bit more realistic. So I just started shaping my carrot by rolling that bottom portion of one piece of this burlap and just gluing that and holding that in place. And then I added just another bead of glue all the way along one side of that and just kind of rolled and wrapped that burlap piece and used my little silicone spatula to make sure that I had all of those seams together and glued down. And I trimmed off any of that excess, any threads or anything that I thought didn't look quite right for my carrots. Just clean that up a little bit. And to stuff these, I just used my polyfill stuffing, and I like to keep this on hand, and I picked that up at Walmart. And I just used the end of a paintbrush just to help me get that pushed down into the very tip of my carrot. And the best thing about this project, a lot of times you want your stuffing to be very smooth and uniform looking, but for this project, I left it kind of a little bumpy so it would look like a real carrot. And then I just trimmed any of that excess burlap off on the top, and I also just cut some slits in that. I thought that would make it a little bit easier to just fold each of those flaps in to finish off the top of my carrot. So I added a little bit of hot glue on the inside and then put in a small piece of boxwood for the carrot top, and then I just folded in all of those pieces and added extra glue here and there if I needed to. Used my silicone spatula, or you might want to use finger protectors for this because you will burn your hands with this hot glue. And some of these I did have to add some more glue on the inside and just hold those in place until everything was glued down. And I made several of these to fill the basket in my kitchen, and that is it for this very simple project. You can make a lot of these in a short amount of time, and I love how they turned out. I have some new and exciting things happening over on my Facebook page. You guys be sure that you check out the link in the description box. I've kind of just changed up things over there. I wanted to start incorporating some recipes that I do, cooking, canning, just some nature videos, things that I find at Dollar Tree, and of course, some sneak peeks at DIYs and crafts that I am working on. This is just something that I really felt led to do, just changing things up a little bit. Also, share some Bible study things, my favorite tools, materials that I have for Bible study, just some thoughts on verses and things like that. I hope I will see you guys over there on my Facebook page. I loved my carrots so much that I wanted to add some other vegetables to go with them. I thought they needed something else in that basket. I have some of this fabric left over from a scarf. I pick those up in the wintertime at Dollar Tree, and they make great projects with. They're easy to work with and they're super soft. I've done a lot of different things with them, and I pulled this smaller piece out for this project. I thought that I wanted to double that up in the beginning, but I decided against that, and I just grabbed a putty tin. I work really closely to our bookshelves where I have a lot of our homeschool things on, so that was just really close on hand. And I just traced out 3 circles using the top of that putty tin, and I just cut those out. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you are enjoying these projects so far. And if you are, please give this video a thumbs up and click that hype button. If you are new here, welcome to my small little corner of YouTube. I'm Alicia, and I am so glad that you are here today. Now let's get back to our featured projects. And I also grabbed a larger bowl and I traced that out as well. I wanted to have a couple of these that were a little bit bigger. So I did 3 of those smaller ones and 2 of the larger circles. Now, to start shaping these into the vegetable that I am making, I just took a needle and a piece of thread, and I am going to be doing the running stitch. Thankfully, I was doing some refresher courses with embroidery in the winter, so I learned again how to do this. It's just very simple. You pull your needle through first, and then you just go up and down through your fabric. And this will just allow you to cinch this together and make kind of a little purse of sorts out of your fabric. And the first one of these I did off camera, and it worked perfectly. I didn't have any problems with cinching that closed, but all of the rest of these, when I wanted to tighten them, those threads and stitches just wanted to pull out. So just be aware of that. If you use this particular fabric, you might have some of those stitches want to pull out on you. But once you have stitched all the way around, you have something that looks like this, kind of a little pocket or a pouch. And again, I just use that polyfill stuffing to stuff this. You don't want to overfill these, or that will make your seams kind of pull and pop, and you will have to redo them. So there you can kind of see how those stitches pulled out. So I just went back around until I got to the starting point again and pulled that closed. And at this point, it kind of looks like a little dumpling, so that might be another project idea. But for this one, I wanted these to be either onions or garlic. They would work for either one. So I had some of these floral picks from Dollar Tree. These actually were called onion stems. These are the ones that have like the little colored Easter eggs on them. So I just cut down several of those sprigs of that greenery and glued either 4 or 5 together. And then I just added a little hot glue in the center of my stuffing on the top. Just completely pulled that closed and made sure I had that tight. I just held that with one hand, and then I just go back through from back to front and just stitched this completely closed. And I just repeated all of those steps until I had all of my onions made. And I think these are so cute. I love how these turned out. And you could also add like the roots if you wanted to. You could take some yarn or some chunkier thread that you might have on hand and just make some little roots on the bottom portion of your onion. I decided just to leave that off for mine. Next, I grabbed out this piece of red fabric, and that is super bright on my end. I don't know if it's that bright for you guys or not. If it is, I apologize. And I got two larger bowls that I had in my kitchen. I just cut those out and did that running stitch again and cinched both of these pieces together. You guys probably know that I am making tomatoes with this one. And again, I just went from front to back on the top and just cinched that closed. And I don't know about you, but whenever I grow tomatoes, they are not completely symmetrical or uniform in shape or size. So that's why I was okay with all of that bunching and the wrinkles at the top of my tomatoes. And I also knew that once I added my leaves, it would kind of hold some, or hide some of those imperfections on the top of my tomatoes. This is just some greenery that I had on a floral pick, and I just glued that down on the top of each of my tomatoes. And I added my onions and tomatoes with my carrots, and I just love the fresh look that I get from this, and it's just something that I can add in my kitchen right now while I am waiting on all of my other vegetables and things to grow. I love to have things that I pick out of the garden in my kitchen, but until then, these will work perfectly. We have a couple of different piles of rocks that we have outside. We've used these for different projects around our house, and I wanted to pick out a few of these for this next DIY. So I found some that I thought would be the perfect size and shape, and I just brought those in and made sure to wash them and remove any of the dirt that they had on them. And then I just grabbed out a few different colors of my chalk paint from Waverly. This one is the crimson color, and I use fern, the orange color, and I think that's it for this. But I wanted to make some plant markers. I have made them before with popsicle sticks or like the plastic ones that you can find at Dollar Tree. Those don't last long at all. A lot of times they will, like the popsicle sticks, of course, they will rot, and the plastic ones just kind of get lost sometimes. So I'm hoping these will hold up really well this year. So I wanted to just paint on them the specific vegetable that I am going to be growing. This one is a tomato. And of course, you can personalize these or customize these to whatever you are growing. If you don't have a vegetable garden, you could do these for your herbs or your flowers, fruit trees, whatever that you might have. And I would love to know if you guys have a garden and if you are getting ready to get all of your vegetables and things planted. And just to outline these a little bit, I started using a chalk pen, but it was just too chunky, so I couldn't get the outline that I wanted, so I just used some puffy paint. And then I either wrote with a Sharpie or with that puffy paint the name of my vegetable on the top of my rocks. And I just used my heat gun to help me with the drying process. And this project, I was able to get all of these painted and customized probably in about an hour or an hour and a half. So this one is a pretty quick project. And I added just some detail with a Sharpie on some of these. Some I just left with that painted surface, but you can have a lot of fun with these, make as many as you want. This would be a fun project that you could do with your kids or your grandkids. And I did let that puffy paint dry overnight, and then I just sprayed an acrylic sealer over these. I did a couple of coats, so hopefully these will last all season and that paint won't chip off. So I did several of these total. I did tomatoes, carrots, beans, zucchini, and some strawberries. And I may add to these as I add the vegetables and things in my garden. When we emptied out this coffee can, I saved it for a DIY. I love the shape of this and the size, so I washed it out really good and let that dry, and I removed the label. And then I took it outside and I did 2 coats of this 2x Ultra Cover paint plus primer. I love this paint because you get a really good coverage, and I really only had to do a couple of coats in some areas that I didn't get completely the first time. And once that had dried, I brought that back in and I did some measuring. I needed to see what the measurements were for that little square on the center part towards the bottom, and then I also measured the top area, and then I called it just the little strip above the square. So I had 3 different measurements, and I went into Creative Fabrica and found this design that I really liked. And I did some changes to this. This is not what the actual design looks like if you download this. And this part of the project was trial and error. I started working with this in my Cricut design space. I wanted to be able to separate the elements out and just print out the ones that I wanted for this project, but I was not able to get that to print correctly from my Cricut design space. So I just went ahead and created a design in Canva, and I was able to size it there, and I printed it on tissue paper. And you guys know how I like to print things on tissue paper. I just think that's a very easy way to add some embellishment and design to a project. But if you do that, be sure that you print on the matte side and not the shiny side of your tissue paper. And then I just wanted to cut out all of these elements separately because I am going to be attaching them in different areas on my coffee can. So I tried to just cut as close as I could to that design and just remove as much of that tissue paper as possible. And I did cut out Flower Market separately. I did cut that out into 2 separate words and not one complete piece because I wanted to put these side by side and not stacked on top of each other. So I did just a dry fit first and made sure my sizing was correct because I was not able to completely separate these before I printed them. So I did want to make sure that these would fit where I wanted them and that the sizing would look good with the size of my coffee can. So I just put those down where I wanted them just to make sure that this is the final look that I want for this project. And then I just grabbed my matte Mod Podge and did just a very light layer underneath where I want all of my design to go. I wanted this to blend in and you wouldn't be able to tell where the edges of this tissue paper was, so I like the Mod Podge technique for that. And I did just place these down before that Mod Podge had dried. Tried to center that because once you put that down in that Mod Podge, it's just there. You're not going to be able to remove that or it would just tear your tissue paper. And then I did just lightly brush over that with my paintbrush that had just a little bit of that Mod Podge just to seal that down. And I do that for all of my pieces of my tissue paper, and I let that dry completely, and then I will go back over that with another layer of Mod Podge. And I wasn't able to completely center Flower Market the way I wanted to because I did cut that in half, so it was just a little bit hard for me to get that exactly straight and lined up, but I don't think it's too bad, and that just adds to the character of this piece, and you can tell that it is homemade. And again, I just did another light layer of Mod Podge. Once that first layer had completely dried, just went over that very carefully with that paintbrush just to seal everything in. Now, to make this look a little bit aged, I grabbed out all of my Distress ink. I did the vintage photo first because that is the lightest color that I'm going to be working with. And I have the walnut and also the black, but I only use that vintage photo and the walnut for this project. And I started on the back just to see if this was going to look the way that I wanted it to, and just used one of those little round applicators that comes with this. And I just dabbed that distress ink all over my coffee can, and then I go back over that with the darker walnut color, and I try to go over those areas that I really want to stand out more with that darker color. And I just love the age that I'm getting using this distress ink. And then I just take the actual ink pad and go around the entire top part of my coffee canister just to make that look a little bit worn as well. And I just really like using it this way, using that ink pad directly on the surface, because it really highlights all of those detailed areas and the indentations on this container. And then I did just go back in with that little applicator and just kind of scrubbed out some of those more pronounced lines that I had by rubbing that ink pad over that. It just blended everything in a little bit better and made this look actually aged and vintage. And I wanted to add some florals to this, and I found this pick that I thought was perfect for these DIYs because it has strawberries in it. And I also picked up a lavender one. I have strawberries and lavender both in my garden, so I just thought those were perfect together. And I really like to blend yellows, whites, and purples together. I think they are very complementary colors. And I did need some fillers, so I just grabbed out some of my greenery that I had in my stash, and I just took my wire cutters and cut everything down into smaller pieces and easier to work with, and arrange those in my flower container. And I just grabbed some grocery bags and just tucked that in to the bottom. I just needed some filler, so this would have a little bit of height. Otherwise, my flowers wouldn't be tall enough for this piece. And I also just added some shredded paper. This just helped me be able to put my picks in there, and it held them in place and held them upright while I was working on this floral design. So I just started with my greenery, kind of added those taller ones towards the back, tucked in a lot of that boxwood, and then I just started working with all of those pieces from the picks that I had cut down. Just tuck those in here and there, and my strawberries, I only had 3 of those, so I tried to space those evenly. I have a thing about symmetry sometimes in my floral arrangements, and I'm a little OCD about that, but I just spaced those out, 1 kind of in the center and 2 on either side, and just kept adding all of my florals until I was happy with the fullness and the way that this looked. And this was such an easy and fun project, and I love all of the colors in this one, and I think this one will work well all the way through spring into summer. That wraps up these farm fresh DIYs. I hope you guys enjoyed these projects today. All of these put a smile on my face, and I am just so happy with the way that they turned out. Let me know if you want to give any of these a try. Please give today's video a thumbs up, like, hype, and share. And I hope you will consider subscribing if you haven't done so already. Have a blessed day, and I will see you in the next one.